Major advancements are on the horizon for Santa Cruz, California. The Santa Cruz Metropolitan Transit District has secured over $20 million in federal funding through the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law to build a better America. This funding will be used to purchase hydrogen fuel cell buses to replace their aging fleet and upgrade facilities while developing workforce programs to support this transition. This initiative reflects Metro's commitment to environmental stewardship and innovation, promising improved air quality, safety, and reliability for Santa Cruz residents. Join us as we delve into the critical path to success, hearing directly from a key stakeholder about the grant application process and the factors that led to this groundbreaking achievement.
My name is John Ergo, and I work for the Santa Cruz Metropolitan Transit District, or Santa Cruz Metro. I'm the Planning and Development Director, and my role is to oversee our service planning, our long-range planning, and our capital programming and grants programs. Yes, our project is to support Metro's transition to a 100% zero-emission fleet as soon as we can. In late 2022, we made a commitment with our board of directors to never purchase another bus with a tailpipe, and developed a plan to fully transition our fleet of 96 vehicles to 100% zero emission well before the mandate from the California Air Resources Board of 2040. Our plan will get us there by 2033. And so our grant application was for hydrogen fuel cell buses to replace our aging fleet. About half of our fleet, or more than half actually, 52 out of 96 buses is beyond their useful life. So we have an aging fleet issue. But the transition to hydrogen is challenging because it's not just replacing buses, it's also replacing our fueling infrastructure, our maintenance infrastructure, and developing workforce development programs to support that transition. And so our grant application was in support of all of those goals. We're a small agency, but we're in one of these transit-intensive communities. And so we have a high ridership and high productivity for the size of our agency. So we're able to stand out on that metric. And we've also made this major commitment to transition to zero emission well ahead of many other agencies, not just our size, but any size. And so I think that helps us stand out. We also make a commitment to put this first initial round of investment in zero emission technology in our historically disadvantaged communities. We have one in the southern portion of our district. And so our goal is to transition our fleet in that area first and then build from there. So I think the equity, the high ridership for our size, and the fact that we've pulled off successful low-no and bus-and-bus facilities grants in the past, highlighting those aspects helps us stand out in our application. We read closely the notice of funding, the guidelines, and the enabling legislation where Congress created the funding to make sure that we aligned with the priorities of the program. We also knew that we had a pretty bold statement in terms of our efforts to convert all of our fleet to zero emission as soon as possible and never buy another bus with a tailpipe. So in this case, I think having had our board set that vision late in 2022, the year before we applied for this, and having completed our zero emission bus transition plan really helped guide the innovativeness of our application. We relied heavily on the Center for Transportation and Environment, a nonprofit organization that also acts as a consultant to many transit agencies in the industry in terms of guiding their transition to zero emission vehicles. The nice thing about low-no, I'll say, and bus facilities and 5339A programs is that the application is not that lengthy in terms of word count. That does make it more challenging to determine what are the most salient points of information to put in there. But from a grant writing perspective, it does make it a little bit easier. So between the guidance we had from the consultant that we worked with, and just our own knowledge of the programs, having applied for a couple of years and having been successful in the past, I think, reading the questions carefully, or reading the guidelines, and making sure you're answering what's asked for, is the way to go about it. We shared our board-adopted zero-emission transition plan that we've submitted to the California Air Resources Board, that documents both the years in which we will complete activities towards the transition, the amount of funding required, and the activities necessary within each of the programs of vehicle procurement, fueling infrastructure, and maintenance facility upgrades. We were somewhat lucky because in April of last year, we had received a State of California grant from the Transit and Intercity Rail Capital Program to also fund this program. And so that really helped us demonstrate that we already had a significant allocation of funding for this program that we were then able to show to FTA and our bus facilities application, that we were pretty far along in terms of the funding that we needed to pull this off. We were somewhat unique in this aspect because we received the significant state grant right before the low-no was awarded. And so in that time, we actually went back to FTA, both through our District 9 liaisons that we work with and in DC, to reduce our ask. So because we had so much of this program funded from the state of California, which happened after we submitted our application, we strategized that we would be more successful in getting additional funding if we reduced our ask to what we needed that was remaining out of our program that still wasn't funded. And so even after we had submitted our application, we went in and submitted a reduced ask, and that's ultimately what was funded. Given that we reduced our ask, I might not do that in the future. One thing that we should have more carefully considered is just the likelihood of cost overruns and increasing expenses in these programs. The FTA has put a lot of emphasis, and Congress and the administration generally has put a lot of emphasis in the transition to zero-emission vehicles in the transit industry, which is great. There's only two options currently on the table: battery electric and hydrogen vehicles. We went fully in on the hydrogen side, but it's a nascent new industry with a lot of uncertainty out there around fuel costs, suppliers, vehicle manufacturers. And so, and now with all the federal money and a good portion of state money coming in, there's a lot of demand. So what we're seeing now are cost overruns, schedule delays, and we're really early on in our project, so we still have time to kind of correct these things. But looking back, I would probably not reduce my ask again in the future. I would go in with the full ask and let FTA decide how much they want to fund.